1. Getting to know you. We met in a Facebook group and migrated to a Discord. Everyone all seemed to vibe pretty well in and out of the game. Someone specifically requested to be the DM. They'd like to play in some one-shots, but they had a homebrew idea. Last summer, we started with a one-shot to lead into the homebrew, and it went well. We did a session 0 before the longer campaign and went over like the hard passes, an RPG checklist. One player, Alex, was a hard no for in-character romance with their characters. Okay, that's fine. We are all in the agreement on a fade to black, if anyone else was down to clown. A few sessions in, we added a new player, Barry. We went back over the checklist again, nothing had changed. Things are great. All our characters were vibing. One of our OG players, Cleo, asked Barry out on an in-game date. They were in real-life friends, so they thought it would be fun. The fake date went on for too many in real-life hours. Cleo and the DM kept trying to wrap it up. Barry kept bringing up Alex, and how Cleo and the rest of us were treating Alex. Specifically, how we didn't ask him about his life story, and why none of us were interested in a romantic relationship with him. Well, we were in the middle of a coup. Personally, romancing someone isn't high on my list in the middle of a bloody revolution. Myself and player Dan had gone to bed. We thought Alex went to sleep. Apparently Alex stayed up all night until Barry and Cleo returned. We didn't find that out until the next session, and fade to black. The next session, well, it was a session. We all ended up getting separated. Alex and Barry, of course, managed to get together in the end. Literally. They got somewhere safe and decided that was the time and place to get it on, with details. The DM immediately faded to black once and started wandering, but they kept trying to describe things. The DM ended up muting them after the progression was just not gonna happen. This did not sit well with Alex and Barry. We wouldn't find that out until the final and subsequent session. The final session. Spoilers, it wasn't a session. Alex and Barry hopped into voice and accused us all of bullying Alex. Specifically, leaving Alex out of any flirting scenes. DM came prepared and went over the checklist. Alex, did not want anyone to flirt with their characters, and we all agreed to fade to black. Well, nobody ever asked Alex about their backstory. We did, we tried. Alex and I were from the same place. We had all talked about being childhood friends, but Alex wasn't interested. Cleo and Dan had many one-on-one chats in character with Alex about their family. Alex never volunteered any information. Alex and Barry kept going in circles. Not for much longer, the DM kicked them. The remainder of us sat there for a minute in confused silence. DM said there wasn't going to be a game that night. The aftermath. We did indeed get an epilogue, since Cleo was very curious what happened to their in-real-life friend. Barry refused to meet Cleo in real life, after what we allegedly did to Alex. Barry went into a whole tirade over texts about the, alleged bullying. Cleo pointed out, just like our DM had done, that Alex did not want to flirt with us. Barry doubled, maybe tripled at this point, down on how we didn't even try. Cleo's attempts to reiterate no means no, and Barry just ignored them. Cleo, Dan, myself, and the DM decided to take a break for the rest of the summer. We still chatted and what have you. Game picked back up in the fall, and the four of us have been playing ever since. Out of curiosity, I did check Barry's Insta. It's mostly not safe for work art of Alex and Barry's characters. It looks like they're happy, so, I mean, they found each other at least. 2. Every now and then, you'll find a store that's being ran by a strange owner. This area was a small district, with only a convenience store and a hobby place. I walk into the hobby store for my first and last time and find the place unkempt. For example, things were scattered around the floor, with one of the miniature paint containers being cracked open and spilled on the, thankfully not carpet, floor. It looked like it had been left there for months. The items were also priced horribly, and were way over the amount that you could normally get them for. I checked the gaming room next. It looked better with the nifty-looking wargame table that was decorated with various miniatures. The owner notices me. He's sitting at one of the tables playing Magic the Gathering, and introduces himself. He is this tall guy who looked like he would fit the role of a bouncer, but I introduce myself back and tell him that I'm here for D&D, and he agrees to sign me up once he is done with his match. Thankfully, he's able to sign me up to the game on time, and I start playing a bit of Adventures League. The game has 6 players, including myself, and while the game was fun, what happened next made me uncomfortable. The owner is on the phone, and he's yelling at someone on the other line. This catches me off guard, and I'm wondering what the argument is about. But as time passes, he gets even angrier and makes threats of physical violence. My face turns to a look of dread as the DM notices my discomfort and tells me that this happens almost every week. Another person is chuckling at the owner's yelling and tells me to relax because it's funny. The DM tried to, in vain, continue the game, but everything grinds to a halt as we decide to wait for the argument to stop before continuing. 10 minutes pass, and there's no sign of the owner quieting down, so I got up and left. Before you ask, I didn't get a refund as I was nervous due to how unstable the owner seemed. The last thing I wanted was for some hulking tall guy to flip out at me. I simply left the store and decided to eat out while telling myself that I wouldn't go to any more unknown stores without looking up reviews. I later looked up the reviews for the place and found that it was sitting at a 2-star rating. As it turns out, other customers had grievances with the owner for different reasons. There was even a review where a customer got a doll thrown at them due to a disagreement. I don't know if that place is still in business, but the owner probably drove that place under. 3. This story serves as proof that no matter how long your players have been alive, they can very much kill themselves in the span of 5 minutes, completely derailing years of a campaign. We have 5 players, a sorcerer, a mage, both with counterspell and dispel magic, a barbarian, a fighter, and a rogue. They are at the end of campaign, finally going to the BBEG's castle on the sky. Their objective there is to collect the final part of a 3-part weapon that the BBEG also wants. The rogue was unable to attend this session, regretfully. The parts bind to your soul, and the players know for a fact that the BBEG was guiding them through the shadows, as they cannot leave their castle. They know that by keeping the final part there, the BBEG plans to make the players invade, to kill them and take their parts. Their invasion begins with them immediately invading by teleport without a long rest, in spite of recommendations. That is a party that shouts, "Long rest," after taking a single hit of damage. When getting there, they are approached by shadows, a barely harmful set of corrupted souls that cause 1 damage on contact, and die, and have 4 health. Upon killing or being touched, the shadows have a bit of lore and tips on how to navigate the castle. That is important, as it is, or would be, the only way of the players getting information from the castle's workings. That shouldn't have been a problem, as my players are the usual murder hobos. Make it bleed first, ask questions if they survive. But for some magical reason they decided to not touch the shadows, having to be attacked to learn anything about that place. But that was okay, they could navigate blindly, as it was not a labyrinth. But they not only not interact with the shadows, they decided to run out of the initial room they were teleported into, where the shadows spawned without a care. So the shadows continued spawning. By the time they were on the 3rd room, there were about 30 of them. Mind you, a single fireball or AO spell that caused at least 4 damage would wipe them, and give a ridiculous amount of info by that point. There, they have a 5-minute-long discussion whether or not to finally have their long rest. in a lobby at the middle of the BBEG's castle. Yes, I counted. I let them and took a bathroom break because I was sure they were mainly joking. No one would decide to take 8 hours of sleep in the middle of the villain's base, right? Anyway, the shadows were coming, so they decided to continue exploring, ignoring them. From the lobby, there were 3 corridors, and a mysterious sign appears out of nowhere, telling the players to go right. The players, who never at any point in the story trusted a mysterious sign, decided to follow it this time. It was a trap. The path explodes. They take a little bit of damage, but nothing that threatening. Now, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, when a sign mysteriously appears telling you to go somewhere, it means that someone knows you're there, right? Not to them it doesn't. The players then try the left path, which eventually leads them back. The only path left is forward. They go for it, and a barrier starts to form in front of them, trapping them in the lobby with the shadows approaching. It was not a prismatic wall, mind you, also not a wall of force. It was simply a barrier that narratively was a way of the BBEG to mess with them, because they're a trickster, which the players know, and like him for it. So the players had a few options. They could finally decide to kill the shadows. They could dispel the barrier. They could take the same amount of time they took deciding whether or not to sleep to plan something. Yet, they saw a hole in the middle of the lobby. In the span of 10 seconds, all 4 players decided to jump on it. The players decided to jump into a hole in a castle on the sky, without checking if they had any way to not splatter themselves on the ground below. Fortunately, the mage had feather fall, so they didn't die, and ended up at the starting point where they teleported from. So in the player's mind, they barely survived death, heroically escaping from the BBEG's traps and devious plans. They were now safe and sound on the ground, far from the BBEG's reach. The shadows also go through the hole and fall to the ground, reshaping harmlessly near them. There is an NPC, the one that teleported the party, at the ground with them, and upon seeing the shadows, they try to cast a protective barrier on the players. At that point, our sorcerer decides it is finally time to dispel something, the very barrier protecting them. Then he immediately threatens the NPC to teleport them back in, to the place where they allegedly almost died at. And with that, they go back to the castle, where now, having lost the initial element of surprise, the trickster BBEG waits for them. After all that, I'm told that I'm rushing the campaigning to end it faster, putting unfair enemies and unbalanced encounters against them, just to prove I'd kill them if I wanted. What was initially a long but funny story developed into a serious discussion about how I am apparently not being clear enough with my instructions, because I want to see them fail to prove I can do whatever I want or whatever. I'm not really sure how the next session is going to go, but hopefully with the players convincing the BBEG's right hand that is not loyal in the slightest, and they know it, to betray him, or fleeing again to plan rationally. But considering our sorcerer just challenged him to a fight, there is a possibility they'll antagonize the only possible ally they have left, and die. 4. This guy was the definition of a problem player. Whether he was a PC or DM, he always started problems. When he was a PC, he would sabotage the campaigns by playing problematic characters. Some examples of him in character creation are making a character strictly to force PvP, even though we have a standing table rule against it, making a character that was the opposite of one of the other PCs because he didn't like the player personally, even going as far as making a character that was entirely antithetical to the campaign. When actually playing, he would constantly start fights among players and characters alike. We had warned him not to do that anymore, but he refused to listen, and even played victim, blaming it on stress from his job and college. When he wasn't causing fights, he would be on his phone. He also always complained that we played favorites and never gave him story arcs. The thing is, we did, but he always complained even if it's exactly what he asked for. And his most common reason why: "That's not how I do it if I DM'd it." The final thing is he would badmouth any of our DMing with a southern "bless your heart" tone. He was always a pretentious fuck. Him DMing was somehow worse. He would openly make puzzles extra difficult or obscure so he can feel superior, including outright refusing to success roll because we put the pieces together too fast. He constantly called himself God, and his major ego constantly got bruised if he didn't figure out the puzzle or if we figured out his too fast. One time, he even made me call him God before he would acknowledge a roll. The player he didn't like was in constant hell while problem player DM'd. Just for the record, the player never did anything to him, was never mean, or had disagreements on or off the table. He just had a problem with him for no reason. He made his players stay separated from the party the first, 5 sessions because of the race the player picked, on top of giving another player extra stuff just because they consulted him on their background, even though he forced all of us to do the same. Having to approve our characters for his homebrew world. He even nerfed the same guy for doing too much damage. He was playing a paladin, with smite. That's what you do. He even went as far as to rip apart everything in his character's backstory to the point by Session 7, he had him become a barbarian. The guy was miserable for most of the campaign. Thank God it only lasted a month longer than that. It was just miserable for all of us because it was always what drawback is the entire party going to have to deal with just because he's on a power trip today? Or how much is he going to pick on this one kid and make all of us uncomfortable? Well, most of us. I asked the 4th player character of the campaign to talk to the problem player and tell him to chill, since they were friends for more than D&D. And he said it was fine, and he didn't see a problem with anything, that the guy was just stressed. His bullying and harassment got so bad the player and I actually called him out mid-game for all his shit. What followed was a toddler's tantrum because he got told off. He actually told me and the guy he was bullying to go fuck ourselves and brought up a bunch of personal stuff in front of the whole group. The silver lining was me, my significant other, and the bullied player started a new group, and we blocked the problem player on everything. You're probably wondering how it lasted so long. This was over a couple of years, just getting really bad recently, and the player who was being bullied wouldn't let us say anything more because he didn't want to lose his one table for D&D. My significant other had a couple of other friends ask to play, and we took that as an out, and we've been doing much better. 5. About a year ago, I saw an LFG post on Discord for a server I'm in. I DM'd the GM, and had a quick interview, after which I got invited to the game. I made a character, backstory, and all that jazz. The next week we had session 0.5, where the GM went over his expectations, and we had a mini-session. Everything was going great for the next few sessions. The party went off to fight a cult related to Star, the problem player's backstory, and that's where the problems started. Whenever anyone interacted with anything from Star's backstory, they got oddly defensive. For example, I pocketed a vial of the magical steroids that the cult was making. Star wasn't even around for this, and they yelled about it out of the game for 3 hours. Fast forward to after we dealt with the cult and we were killing their leader. Star spent over 8 minutes, yes, I timed it, monologuing about how this is revenge for killing their family. After that, we talked to the city council about what to do with that part of the city. We had 2 options, either help or destroy the bad part of the city. Everyone but Star wanted to help, so we had a vote. Star got annoyed that they didn't get their way and yelled at us out of the game, till one of the players dropped out of the VC. For a while, we didn't have any more incidents in the game, except for the 10+ minute monologue that we occasionally got from Star, because we stopped dealing with Star's backstory and moved on to the main story. Out of the game, however, Star would fight with anyone who disagreed with them. If you didn't think wizards were the best class in the game, they would scold you because you were wrong. If you liked to play rangers, well, you were an idiot because that class sucked according to Star. If you wanted to do something that wasn't raw, you were a horrible person for even suggesting it and not knowing niche rulings off the top of your head. The last incident happened when we were fighting a boss. The boss was dealing heavy damage to all of us, but we were managing to fight it until it landed one attack on Star. So what did the optimized, super amazing GigaChat Star do? They ran away, leaving the party to die. Luckily, the barbarian landed a crit and killed the boss. Star took this opportunity to monologue at the boss from 90 feet away. When the GM said that they were almost outside the dungeon and there was no way anyone could see or hear them, they sulked and said they would shut up because no one wants to talk to me anyway. Afterwards, Star had a meltdown in the Discord server, saying that no one liked them, that people ruined Star's backstory by voting, and that everyone was attacking them. We agreed to try and be nicer to Star and to leave any choice related to their backstory up to them. Mind you, their backstory takes place in the hub city of this world, and Star effectively wanted total control over the city to the point where they were trying to appoint people to the council. But was that enough? Of course not. Star demanded our votes get revoked by the city council and only theirs stay, as well as executing my character for taking the steroids that their character didn't know I took. After everyone told them that they were being fucking ridiculous, they had another tantrum and left the game. I don't think anything of value was lost that day, but they say if you listen closely, you can hear Star monologuing in the wind. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 20-Sided Dunce, number 6. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you'd be so kind, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button before you left. Thank you kindly. If you'd like to support the channel, then you can also get the videos a little bit early by supporting me through my Patreon. That link to that is in the description, and you'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer Teespring merchandise store. And if you'd like to make tips on a more one-off basis, then you can click the little heart with a $sign in the middle there, just below the video, and you can leave a tip of your choice. You don't have to do this, and please don't think you ever have to do this, but I do very much appreciate it, and I appreciate the help it's provided. Thank you kindly. Right, no other business, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: does anyone have any special plans for New Year? I used to go down to my sister's house, but quite frankly I've stopped that. I have reasons for doing so, and I think I'm just going to do what I did last year. And that is do a New Year's stream. So I'll probably do like a couple of hours on New Year, probably between like 11 and 1 a.m. UK time, and see you in the New Year with you folks. I will get appropriate snacks to treat myself, of course. Let me know what you think in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.